Hello, here we are, COVID Diary Week 1. For most of us now, we've been locked up in our homes. And here's a few ideas and thoughts from me to help you get through this period. Many people, clients and colleagues, are asking me why I'm not more anxious or worried or concerned about the virus. Well, I am. It's just that this is a bit like old times for me. It reminds me of the AIDS crisis back in the 1980s. Then, as now, initially, we didn't know what was causing the condition, the disease, and everyone was panicking. Then we found HTLV3 and then HIV. Here we know it's coronavirus. Back in the 80s, we talked about safer sex as being don't have sex with Americans. And then we got on to realise that safer sex was the way forwards. Here we know it's social distancing, and that's actually making a difference. Then, as now, there was lots of what we now call fake news and conspiracy theories, all sorts of things going on. We didn't have the internet back in 1980, but there were newspaper reports and leaflets being given out and all sorts of misinformation. There's a lot more misinformation these days. Then a diagnosis was terminal. Today, for coronavirus, it will be terminal for some people. A lot of us will get ill and we'll get over it. And here I am, some 30 years later. AIDS is still here. It's now a treatable condition. We're talking about giving people PrEP in order to stop them passing on the virus. It's going to take a year or so to get a vaccine for coronavirus, but it will come. This will end, and that's perhaps the most important message. Whatever happens, and in the next few weeks, the numbers of people being diagnosed are going to skyrocket. The number of people dying are going to increase. Most people's change in behaviour comes when they know somebody. We saw that back in the 80s. Yes, there was all this information about HIV and AIDS. Nobody knew anybody diagnosed with it. No one knew anybody who died of it. So why should they change their behaviour? Until they did. Either they had their own diagnosis or they knew somebody who died. And that was the greatest change in behaviour. And I think the same will happen here. As the numbers increase, we'll all know somebody who's been diagnosed. Sadly, we will probably all know somebody who will have died. One of the most important things we found in the 1980s, and at the tender age of 24, I took the first call on the AIDS helpline back on February the 14th, 1984. And one of the first things at the Terence Signature Trust that we did was get informed. We produced a leaflet. In fact, we produced several leaflets over the years as more information came in. Now, you've got the internet. Sadly, there's lots of misinformation out there. So choose your sources carefully, but get informed and keep informed. Today's Saturday. I was going to do this little video last night, but so much has happened in the week, and part of me was waiting to catch my breath, to understand what actually was happening. It's happening and it's changing all the time. So keep informed. The other thing, which is different from the 1980s, is staying at home, because it's affecting the whole population rather than in the 80s what used to be called a subculture. Coronavirus is affecting us all, and we're all being asked, and soon we will be told, to stay at home. And one of the most important things, talking to my colleagues and my clients this week, is that the most important thing is structure. If you're working from home and you can't have an environment whereby you can boundary off your work, then choose your clothes and have work clothes. And come 5, 6, 7 o'clock or whenever you would normally finish, get changed. Mark a boundary between work or school, if you're homeschooling your children, and relaxation time in the evening. The same is true for weekends. Do something different, have a different atmosphere. Take down the calendars or shift things around at weekends. We're coming up to Easter shortly, in a couple of weeks' time. So have a think now about how you want to do that differently. Whether you want to dress differently, whether you want to do different things, play more games, if you're lucky enough to have a garden, or watch different things on television, or play different computer games. But make it different. And the last thing, especially that we found back in the 80s, which is equally true today, is keep in touch. Then it was about people getting together, physically, meeting up, creating support groups. We've been asked not to meet up, and yet now we have, what we didn't have in the 80s, the internet. Ways of keeping in contact, WhatsApp, Skype, Zoom, all these ways of making contact and keeping in contact. We are social creatures, and so the instruction to be antisocial is difficult for most of us. So hold that together. Keep connections with people. And I suppose the overall arching message after this week is to remind ourselves, and if you have children, to remind them, that this will be over. It's going to get more painful. There will be more people diagnosed. There will be more people dying. And just as we've seen in China, that will then level off and fall. So this will be over. And maybe one of the things to start thinking about that'll help staying cooped up together a little more easy is to think about and to dream about what you want to do afterwards. Places you haven't seen, people you've got out of contact with. So there we are. The first week. Keep a structure, keep informed, and keep together. If you've got any questions, then you can email me at this address. Is there anything else you particularly want me to talk about, given the situation that we're in, let me know. And one of the most important things about resilience is having a plan. So now's the time to plan. You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next week. Take care.